Okay, a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this seminar. My name is Ramya and I am the assistant professor at Matrasri Engineering College, Department of Information Technology. Today we are presenting a seminar on process of technology readiness level presented by Mr. Prasanna Kumar sir. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type that one in your chat box. And at the end of the session, the doubts will be clarified by the sir. Now, without any further ado, we will give a turn to our speaker, sir. Our speaker of the day is Mr. Prasanna Kumar, sir, who is working as a team lead in Insight Software Organization. He is a versatile knowledge and command over the training technologies and also tools. And he will be sharing his experience and knowledge with us today. Over to you, sir. Prasanna Kumar, sir. Please take it forward.
Okay. Thank you, Ramya ma'am. Thank you for articulating, taking the trouble in articulating that point. Is my voice clear?
Yes, sir. It's clear, sir.
Right, cool. Okay. So can you give me permissions to share the screen?
Okay, sir. Sir, please allow me to record this session, sir.
Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Right. Hello all, good evening, a warm welcome basically. So I think you people already had a very long day, very rough day. I heard that few of you are attended some campus recruitment training sessions and you are in college and few of them attending from home. So whatever may be the year you people are, a good evening once again to you all. So today we'll be discussing at a ground level, at a reality, in a reality, what exactly in a typical layman terminology, what exactly innovation is. What exactly, and I request all to be on mute. It might disturb other people. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. So we'll be discussing few important points on innovation, what exactly TRL is, and other few important points, more of tech transfer and other important things. So I'll directly dive into the agenda of this session. I'll be muting you all. I see.
Good morning to Manila. My name is
Can you all go on mute, please? Okay, we are good now. Right. I had to forcefully do that. Now it's clear, there is no background noise, I would say. So let's directly get into the agenda of this session. So we'll be discussing three important points. For each, I'll take around 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll be having a Q&A session at the end of the session. Please, you can type your questions in the chat box. I'll answer all the questions you have. So we'll be discussing a little more information related to innovation, the process of innovation, what are the stages of innovation, how one has to equip, or what are the skills one has to have an innovative mind. Then we'll be going deep dive into technology readiness level. What exactly TRL to show in a short form, what exactly TRL is, where are we, how we can achieve it, what are the scaling factors to indicate at the TRL level. Then finally, we'll be doing a tech transfer. A tech transfer is more or less of what exactly industry is expecting or what exactly industry is looking at this moment, at this point of time. So since the industry is very huge and very broad, it is very difficult to cover all the different kinds of areas, because we have innumerable number of areas and we can discuss on this for years. So at a shortcut, to give a gist, we'll be discussing more of the web platform or the web development platform or the web technologies, whatever maybe the subject you people have. Will be will be will be dwelling deep into web development area, purely the typical web development area, and we'll be seeing what are the tech stacks which the current market is required and what are the other more we have to enhance. So this is a typical agenda of this session. Let's go to the first topic of this session: innovation. Now, here I have a sample PPT with few pictures aligned here and over there. Now let's discuss what exactly innovation is. Where are we as a in India from the innovation standpoint, basically. Now, innovation could be anything. So there's a broad misconception from the ground level that innovation is something like people has to invent a new technology from the scratch, but that is not the reality. Basically, innovation can be all the way, it could be a new product, or it could be a simple new idea, or it could be a simple new method which reduces the work effort, in a simple terminology. So that corresponds to innovation. Now if we see the left side picture, there are different kinds of steps. There are different kinds of steps which directly lead to the standard innovation. Now typically, if you go or if you search in Google, electric bulb would be the standard factor for displaying the innovation. Why we can't show any other, let us say car, or let us say train or aeroplane as a example for innovation? Why typically it is only electric bulb which is displayed or which is used for the innovation? So that would be the first pertinent question you should develop while you are thinking or you're researching. Any question, any idea, anything, if somebody shares you the information, if somebody shares you information, or nowadays we have WhatsApp universities. So if you get some information on the WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever maybe the social media platform, do not just blindly believe it. Basically. So that's the point. Always have a childhood mentality to question everything if you find. So here I have noted the different kinds of process or different kinds of steps which finally leads to innovation. Now, typically innovation at a broader high level, if we understand, innovation can be at 5 different stages. It could be an association. It could be association. After association, it would be questioning. Then we move to the observing stage. Finally, we'll be starting experiment on our idea or innovation. Finally, networking, nothing but we are going to the market, the go-to-market area. Now, all these typical terminologies I'm explaining from the industry perspective. Now, how exactly a thing happens in an industry. Now, when I say association, it is nothing but more or less group of people discussing or sharing an idea which you think that solves a typical problem. Now, questioning is something like, what are the current technologies which are in market solving the problem or the area which we have selected. Now, the third stage would be observing. Observing is more or less observing the existing technologies together with whatever we are going to propose. That comes the third stage of innovation. Experimenting is something like would be a proof of concept. Now you have an idea. It is something like you can't go and theoretically explain anyone about your idea. You have to show something, a provable concept. That's where experimenting comes into the picture. Finally, networking. Networking is something like a go-to-market strategy where your idea, your product, your method, whatever it is, you are demonstrating to the person who already suffering because of that problem. Now here two important things you have to consider is what would be the area of your research. Now your area of research should be something like it should not be very at the macro level but a huge level. Area of research could be at a very small typical atomic level. Okay, so it could be very macro level, it could be at very micro level as well. You should not miss the macro factors and you should also not miss the micro factors while doing your research in the area. You have to be very subjective and very as descriptive as possible whenever you're doing any research. Now, one can say that I'll do research in computer science. Now, that is a very vague and uncertain statement to make, actually. Now, in computer science itself, we have it's a multidisciplinary. We have many areas. So the precise area of research and precise problem you are going to solve through your innovation or through your idea, you should have a very detailed clarity on it. Now, if you see the typical in India, the Indian innovation across the state standpoint, we are at 66. Now, if we go to the global level, we are at 46th position. So these are different kinds of indicators which we have, which the government or Niti Aayog uses to get to this value. Now, these are the different kinds of areas or different kinds of enablers uh, which will be used for innovation. Now there are now what is the process which what are we have discussed the stages. Now how this discuss the stages, we can move into a process. Now the process comes into 4 different areas. As I said, the same stages will also applicable for process, nothing but this is more or less a theoretical part and this would be the practical part. And in the practical part, as I said, that understanding the problem plays a major role. Now when I say understanding the problem, it's all about the what is the problem you are solving. You have to be very as precise as possible. It's not like you give a vague statement or uncertainty statement that doesn't go anywhere, that doesn't yield any result. Now the first, once after understanding the problem, now what would be your idea? What would be your idea where you want to implement your problem, how you are solving the problem comes your idea. Then prototype, as I said, that experimenting leads to the prototype. A prototype is something like a proof of concept which we will be developing to demonstrate your idea. Then finally evaluation and refinement. Evaluation, refinement, something like a quality check and everything, where you'll be showing the proof of concept. Okay, now this is how it typically at a broader level how things work in the market. Now it is something like, it's not like it works only in the IT career. No, this can be applicable for any field, whatever you are. Since we are from the IT background, I'm purely stressing from the IT infrastructure technology standpoint. So it doesn't mean that this is not applicable for any other fields. This is a generic research framework any market expects you to do. So 2 important things, as I said, you have to be very careful would be is what is the problem, precise problem which you are solving, the typical precise problem you are solving, and what would be your problem, what is your research.
Excuse
so
me,
that
sir.
would be your
Sorry for this disturbance. So
okay.
this session will end in 5 minutes, sir. So all of you join again the same link in 5 minutes.
Okay. Sure. So that would be the 2 important parts, where 2 important areas or 2 important need of the hour points where you have to focus on. Now, this is a typical what I have explained about innovation. Now, in a reality, from the in the IT market, when you are working on a big MNC companies, the scope of research would be little less. Until or unless you are part of a core development research team, you'll not get that opportunity to work on research areas. Suppose if you are working in a startup based companies, the scope of research would be more, and it also comes with a toll on your hard work. Okay, so it has its own advantages, it has its own disadvantages. So whenever you are choosing your career or whenever you are choosing your organization, you have to yourself frame yourself a question, am I correct for this organization? So it depends on, suppose if you want to go from research standpoint, you have to do analysis whether is this company will be providing my research oriented work. Okay, that would be 2 important points to typically from the IT sector standpoint. Nevertheless, if you have a will to innovate everything, there will be always a scope. As I said, that startup, there would be a bigger window to establish yourself. In our MNCs, there is also be a scope, but it would be a little smaller window to work over there. But as I said, that whenever you're solving make sure that your area of research is precise and your problem of research is also as descriptive as possible. So this is a typical innovation from the innovation standpoint, which I would like to give a brief gist of the process. Now let's get into the other important part of this presentation, which will be the technology readiness level. Okay. Now here I want to spend the maximum part of the seminar. What is technology readiness level? Why we want to use it? Does it play a major role in whatever maybe the career you have selected? It could be any organization. It could be a government organization. It could be a university. It could be a high-level MNC. It could be a small startup. Okay. Now, what this technology readiness level indicate? Okay. Let's get into the historical aspects of technological readiness when this is implemented. When this is when we where we got this concept of technology readiness level. No, it all dates back to NASA in 1970s. Is anyone want to ask any question? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay, right. Now it dates back to 1970s when NASA trying experiments outside the space for the Apollo 11 project. That's where this concept of technology readiness level came into the picture. Now, what this indicates was it's a method or a process to understand the technical maturity of a product or product technology they have. Okay, what it demonstrates, let us say that if we are developing something, or if we are innovating something, or if we are creating something, at what extent, at what stage exactly it is, that is what this technology readiness level indicate. Now I'll stop here for a few minutes. Let's understand typically from pure development standpoint, as a computer science, from the development standpoint, what are the different phases of development? Then we'll come back to the technology readiness level in a short while. Now, what are the different phases of development? I think you people already have a subject called software engineering or software methodologies, whatever the terminology, where you'll be learning types of companies, the different types of development processes, spiral model, waterfall model, etc., different kinds of development. All these are still in market and still are working. So if we little summarize all the different kinds of development models or different development processes, we will get into three important phases of a development. That the first phase would be the research phase, where innovation comes into the picture. The second phase would be the development. It is something like it's also part of innovation, where we actually building the product. Finally, it would be the deployment. The deployment phase is something like where we would be going to the market. Now, typically in between development and deployment, there's also other phase, which is called a testing phase, where we would be doing the quality assurance check. But nowadays, development and testing, testing is combined with deployment. Testing automatically comes internally as part of deployment. Now, these are the three important areas, or three important things at high level. A product development or a product happens, the development of the product happens. Now it is, as I said, the technology readiness level I have explained in terms of product development, but it doesn't mean that it is only applicable for development of the product. It also applicable for any kind of phase. Now let us say that we are in a college. Now this concept is also applicable to the university as well, to understand whether the university is properly equipped with the standard technologies. It also applies to the corporation or any government office, whether it is technologically, whether it is properly upgraded. So suppose if it is not technologically upgraded, some way or other during the flow of time, it would be perished. So this is where all the organizations, all the it's a generic concept. It will be applicable for any product, any development activity. Accordingly, it is also applicable for any organization or university or corporation, etc. So that's the concept of technology readiness level. See, in typical term, in layman terms or naive terms, it's a scale. It's a scale which is ranging from 1 to 9 to, to give a gist of at what maturity an organization is or at what maturity the project is. So this is the at a high level a TRL corresponds to. I think the session would be finished in a couple of minutes, couple of seconds, I would say. We'll rejoin and we'll start from there. Ramya ma'am, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, it's visible, sir.
Right, cool. So we were at technology readiness level as we were discussing technology readiness level is a scale which is used for any organization or any product development to understand the technological maturity. The tech would be the common word across all the factors, all the 9 pointers which you are seeing in the right hand side of your screen. Now we'll discuss each and every point in detail at a one-liner what exactly this means is. Now before going that 1 to 3 level, 1 to 3 level is more or less from the university and the colleges standpoint, which are used for the university and colleges, and 1 to 9 would be used for corporates or any manufacturing or any other organization. Now the 4 to 7, which we generally call as a valley of death. Now there's a specific reason why these 4 stages are called of death, because this is the crucial period where a product development happens, product gets a life, I would say. Now this between 4 to 7, majority of the companies will give up or will fail. So 8 and 9 would be the typical as a standard process. There is nothing much to do there over there, at least from the hard work standpoint. Now 4 to 7 plays a major role in development standpoint, and these 1, 2, 3 you get equipped from your college and from your university, and these 1, 2, 3 play a crucial role. Now, as we were discussing, any development or any product standpoint, typically there will be 3 important stages. One would be the research, the second would be the development, and third would be the deployment. Now, what exactly research means? In research contains a 3 important pointers ranging from 1 to 1, 2, and 3. Now, the first stage, as it is highlighted, it's a basic principles observed. So the first step point would be the observation. More or less, we can say finding facts. Now, what we need to do, a question which arises in the stage 1. The second step would be the technology concept formulated. This is more or less doing the analysis or analytical reasoning, or all the analytical skills comes into the picture when the technology concept is formulated. Now, do we really need? What do we have? What is the history, historical facts? Everything comes into the picture. The third step would be something like a proof of concept. It's not like we are developing a whole product here. Here we are developing a small piece of functionality to explain our idea, what we want to develop, a proof of concept which would be developing. So these are the 3 important factors, 3 important things are the fundamental things. I explained typically from the development standpoint, but these 3 applicable in generic in nature, which are morely at a university level. So these can also be applied to university, something like a basic principles. When I say basic principles are something like what market is expecting. Let us say if market is more or less expecting the cloud technologies, if a market is expecting AI based or machine learning, etc., etc. So that would be the basic principles. Now comes to the second area. Second technology concept formulated is more or less nothing but do we have the, what would be the history, what would the history of that history of what market is expecting, how it is formulated, any of the previous things can be used. Now proof of concept is something like introducing a new discipline in the curriculum such that it can be beneficial for student. I just gave you a vague example, but this is how it is demonstrated. Now, coming to the development standpoint, typically this is of more or less used very less in the university, very more in the organization or corporate standpoint. Now, technology validated in the lab is something like gathering of inputs which we need to totally create a project or create a proof of concept, or gathering of input, let us say from the university standpoint, all the equipments we have, do we have really in the lab to for the new discipline which we are about to introduce. Now here we have two important factors, 5 and 6. One is validating uh, uh, in the relevant environment, validation in the relevant environment, and finally demonstrating in the demonstration. Now fifth stage corresponds to typically the, what I can say, a area or a focus point where the dev ready stage, something like the product is going to be ready. Now for that, what are the technological factors we have? Now from that, again, from the university standpoint, the curriculum, number of lessons, number of the academics, whatever it may be, the terminology, which are we really ready? That would be the fifth point. Sixth point is more or less same. I think we're demonstrating of the fifth point. There is not a major difference. What I would say here is something like we would be in the process of readying. Here the sixth stage, yes, we are ready and we have a proper framework in our place. Now the second stage, the seventh and final stage would be is the deployment. 7, 8, 9 would be deployment factors, where what we do generally is we demonstrate our product, operational product in an operational environment. Nothing but in a typical IT terminology, we call it as a live environment or a production go live, whatever the you see or you hear such kind of words in the IT sector. Now this is a go live market or the production environment where you have everything built ready as a minimal viable product or a release one or MVP, where you can showcase or you can solve a problem to the market. The eighth stage would be the quality factors. No, it's not like I develop a product and I can give to anyone. There are many different kinds of quality indicators which are required. Now, let us say that if you are taking a user data as an input, so how securely you are maintaining the data, that's where this quality checks come into the picture. It's if it is a little secure, no one will go to that product and invest time on it or provide data to it. Now that's where quality checks come into the picture. There are a number of standards which are available in the market, vast. So it's up to us. We have to, what we have to choose such that we gain a confidence on the market. It could be ISO certified product. It could be ISO certified organization. Many quality factors certified by different kinds of antivirus or different kinds of security, cyber security companies, which gives us that this is a fully secure product. Finally, the last stage is everything is proven and it is readily usable by the users or the customers or the market people. Now these are the 1 to 9 technology maturity level which the scaling would be used for any organization, any university, any college, any corporate. It could be a development, it could be introducing a curriculum, it could be anything. Okay, so this is all what exactly the technology readiness level is all about. So we have to be very each and every stage plays a major role. As I said, some research and development, some of them could be purely applicable for market, some of them could be applicable for entire corporation, some of them could be purely for certain criteria. Just give me a second, sorry. Let's go to the next part of the session. Tech transfer. So we would be here we'll be purely focusing on the web development standpoint. So there are different kinds of development which we would be doing: enterprise level applications, client level applications, backend applications, database specific applications, UI specific applications. Now I'll be purely focusing on the UI part of the development. So a web application corresponds to 3 important factors. One is the UI, the front end screen which you see on the screen, the backend logic. Once after you provide the inputs on the screen, the backend logic which takes the inputs, which performs all kinds of validations and stores in the database. There are 3 important parts: one with the UI front end technologies, the backend or business logic, and finally with the database. From if you go little 5 years back, 5 years, some 2013, 2014, and 2007, 12, the market was in such a way that where the focus was purely on the specific area. Suppose let us say I know JavaScript, I know HTML and CSS. I can work in a company where purely has this requirement. Now, let us say that I am a backend developer. I have a good idea on Java. I have a good idea on .NET. I have a good idea on Golang or Python, whatever it is. I can excel in the IT. Or if I know a database languages, I can excel in that languages. But now, after the pandemic, after 2020, I would say there was a major shift from the development requirements a corporate is expecting. It's no more concentrating on a specific programming language or a specific technology. It's concentrating on a full stack oriented knowledge. When I say full stack oriented knowledge, as I said, that you should be equipped with all these three. It's like it's not like again you go all these round all the languages and you learn something. It is all about you would be take one programming language as your base. Once you understand one syntactical syntax or semantics of a programming language, it is easy for you to jump on any other programming language. So what I mean was equip a weapon in each and every these streams. It could be a front end, it could be a business logic, or it could be a database. Choose one programming language which you are very good at. It could be a simple C programming language, it could be a complex some other Golang programming language. It's up to you, but choose one programming language, understand it from deep down very clearly, then it would be very easy for you from jumping from one language to other language. Now here I'd be purely focusing on the web development standpoint, purely the UI, the front-end technologies, which we call the web technologies, the subject which you have in your curriculum. Now, if you go to the stats from the web development is one of the very, I would say, very changing and accelerating phase when compared to backend or database. Web development is changing like anything. It is very accelerating, and suppose if you want to be a web developer, you have to be continuously understand the market, because the reason is, if you see the stats here on the screen which I'm just presenting, we have in a worldwide web typically 2 billion websites, and every day thousands of new websites are getting added and will be added to the market. Now, what are the latest technologies? We continuously is getting enhancement. Now, if you see typically the Google site from 10 years ago, it was totally different. The YouTube, it was totally different. Now, what are the latest enhancements which we are coming on the screen? Something like 3D printing, 3D based, properly visual with the VFX. VFX, the push notifications. Let us say you have a web application, if something is changed, if you enable the notifications, you automatically get the notifications. The browser extensions, the most commonly used browser extension would be is a Grammarly. Browser extensions, scaffoldings, accelerating web pages. Within, it is not something like I go and I can directly I can't wait. The time is a crucial factor here. I can't wait. It should be very quick and very fast. It has to be mobile responsive. It has to be motion UI, something like if I tilt landscape, if I tilt portrait mode, it should be applicable in any mode I select. It could user friendly, user incentive, which we call, and voice based assistance, natural processing, AI, everything is getting integrated into the web application. Now here I named a very few, just to give you a brief, very few, but there are many other latest enhancements which are happening in the web development phase, and you have to be equipped with those. Now here I just broadly divided into 5 important categories or 5 important criteria for a web development, where one has to be very careful with. Suppose if you are developing a web application, now user interface and experience, it's something not like I go on entering everything. It's very tedious or very laborious for a user to who is using our website. Typical to our old websites, our government websites, how they use it to be, and there are still few government websites where there is proper very less responsiveness. Very careful of that. Enhancement updates, you have to be very careful at enhancements. You have to be very open for the feedbacks whenever you're coming from the market. You have to always continuously enhance your web application. You have to continuously enhance your responsiveness and properly give the updates. When I say update, it's not like when you're updating your web application, it should not be going down for one day where site is not at all available. Let us say that if Facebook goes down for one day, now what would be the situation? If Gmail goes down for one day, what would be the situation? Just imagine. lakhs of crores of businesses would be getting affected, right? Now we are very careful about the updates. SEO friendly search engine optimization is a non-technical aspect, but it also has a technical concept behind it. Search engine optimization typically corresponds to whenever you search anything in your Google, the search algorithm typically goes searches and a different process is involved. The search words which were used by a customer, you have to write your text content in such a way that your website comes to the top. That's where search engine optimization comes into the picture. It's not like you write very big words which are used in GRE examination. The word should be very simple, very formal, such that if these are the words typically people generally searches in they use in Google search. That's how a search engine optimization comes into the picture. The production and maintenance is always said more or less an update standpoint. The any issue which is appearing on the screen, sometimes the screen goes down, you have to be very careful on that part. And finally, the final part would be the unit testing phase. The unit testing of the application should be in such a way that there are two kinds of testings. It could be a manual testing where you'd be testing the each and every screen, each and every option on the screen, and the automated testing where we have n number of tools available in the market where you can automate your testing. Something like, let us say that you are building a web application where there's a login screen. Now you should not every time go and test the login functionality. You should develop an automated process, the test automation, in such a way that once after your development or your feature development happens or your version is ready, you go and you click on whatever the automation you have, and it should take care and you should provide the result of the automation. So these are typical 5 different phases of a web application, how a market is running currently. Now, what are the important languages which we see in the web application standpoint is whatever may be the technological trend you are seeing and whatever may be the technological languages you are seeing in the market, 3 languages plays a very vital role. One is HTML, next is CSS, and a pure JavaScript. Okay, now these 3, whatever may be the very advanced programming language you are using from the web application standpoint, all these will be drilling down to these 3 important areas. These 3 are the fundamental aspects which every student has to equip while developing a web application. Basically, now these 3 cannot be moved or cannot be replaced at this moment, and they still lie as it is. So any web application, all the way, it corresponds to just 3 areas. So if you want to be a web application or web developer, you have to equip with these 3 for sure. Otherwise, your career in web application would be always a down graph. There will be nothing much you will be learning, or there is no scope for you to enhance more. And using these fundamentals, many of the things got evolved. Now, typically earlier, JavaScript used to be a very blunt and very typical language where a user, very difficult for user to write or use a programmer to write. Basically, now after the different variations of JavaScript, now JavaScript has evolved into a certain stage that using JavaScript as a library, a number of very advanced programming languages have came into the market. Now, to name a few, it could be React, it could be Angular, it could be Vue, it could be Daisy, or it could be any other different kinds of programming frameworks, I would say, evolved, which makes a web development life easier. Now, why it makes a web development life easier? How they are making web development life easier? There are many factors to determine that. Now, it could be something like a browser level enhancements. Let us say a programming language supports a certain type of browsers. Other programming language supports the different kinds of browsers. Or it could be a session management. The session management, something like if you enter some information, you submit it, the screen loads on forever, and after some time it says that request is not accepted or 404 exception. So that's how it happens typically. Now, these are different kinds of enhancements which are happening, which the new latest programming comes and provides us the flexibilities. But all in all, as I said, that the fundamental aspects would be is JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. It's not like what you're learning in your textbooks. You have to go beyond your traditional architecture. Now, there is a programmatical concepts which we use to develop in Java or .NET came into the JavaScript, where you can use object-oriented notations in the JavaScript. And accordingly, object-oriented notations can be used in CSS. Okay, there are advanced CSS concepts, reusability of the CSS, something like mixings, etc. Oops through CSS or object-oriented CSS is possible nowadays, which is the current trend in the market, you have to equip it. It's not, see, and it's not like whatever you're learning today might be useful or might not be useful for tomorrow's world. But the only important point you have to keep in mind that the fundamentals you are learning today is very, very important. Now, as I said that you can go to White Hat Junior, you can drag HTML application, you can build a beautiful website, or you can use GoDaddy, or you can build a beautiful website in 5 minutes. There is no harm in doing that. That's a simple job, and a watchman of a university or a college can also do that if you give you certain steps. Now, as a programmer, as a CSE student or IC student, what you have to remember is how the things are happening. What is the functionality behind it? Now, when I say if I create a HTML element box to take username and password, what is the difference? How the backend browser is rendering this? And once I click on a form submit button, how the inputs are getting and how the data is passed to the server such the data is processed. Now, these are the fundamental aspects which cannot be automated how the AI is. Now, these are the, I think somebody is playing with the screen. I'm happy for that. A developer is already there here. So these are the fundamental aspects one has to consider himself to, as a developer, as a CSE from the IT background, you have to be very sure about these things. Understand the functionality, understand the fundamentals is very, very important part as part of your learning. Now, the things which I said is purely from the web application standpoints, but these same concepts which I told, it applicable to any other development you're going. Okay, so as I said that there'll be three major focus areas. One is the front-end tech stack, other would be the back-end business logic, which we call, then finally would be the database. Now, these three would form a development life cycle of the ID. Any product, it could be these three plays a major role at this moment. Now, if you equip a weapon in each of these phases, it could be you choose HTML and CSS, JavaScript, or you can choose any other program, PHP or any other programming language in UI. Read it thoroughly such that if the programming language suddenly gets changes, it will be easy for you to jump from one area to other area. Accordingly, you choose one programming language up to your convenience. It could be Java, it could be Python, it could be .NET, it could be Golang, it could be n number of languages are available in the market. Okay, it's not like your curriculum says Java, you have to only stick to Java. Your curriculum says Python, you stick it to Python. N number of open source languages are available in the market. All the languages follow the similar structure. The way the notation changes, that's it. If you have perfect in one language, you'll be easily going to the language. And finally, the database. Irrespective of you have front end, you have the back end business logic language. Without database, it is nothing. Without database knowledge on database, it's not at all usable in the market. You have to have, it's not like you will be having, you should have a light experience on database, but you should have a basic understanding of a database, RDBMS, cloud systems, etc. How the data is stored, how the data is stored in tables, how the data is stored in records, how the data is stored in collections, what is a SQL, what is a NoSQL. So these are the fundamentals you should be aware of. You have to understand how data is stored to get you the end-to-end flow of the application. This makes you ready for the market. Without these, it's like just understanding learning few important points, attending the interview doesn't yield you anything. Now, this is something like it's not only for the interview or cracking the interview, for enter your development from the computer development standpoint, you have to always enhance your skills on these three areas. And we'll go to the next slide quickly, then we'll join back again for the questionnaire session. Now, these are the few important points I would ask you, or I would say to you to concentrate on. So let us say that when I say follow Twitter handles, I'm not asking you to do messages or chatting in the Twitter. Every programming language, everything, whatever the technological stack will be having a Twitter handle in the Twitter. So follow the Twitter handles very carefully. See what are the next enhancements they are doing, what are the next updates they are doing. It could be not only programming language, it could be a technical area, it could be artificial intelligence, it could be cloud technology, it could be a sky computing, it could be any other technology area. There would be typical Twitter handles, official Twitter handles, where they post continuous updates. So do follow the Twitter handles. Then develop your own GitHub repository. Now, whatever the process which you're manually doing as part of your development activity, prepare a
Sir, a small request. Can you please complete this one, as it will complete in 1 minute, sir?
Yeah, just follow. Yeah,
okay,
sure. So develop a GitHub repository, your GitHub repository in such a way that it should be a collection of all your tools which you have developed, and it would be definitely remember that all the tools which you have developed. It could be a small programming language, something like finding a prime number, to be a big major project. So prepare your GitHub repository in such a way that it would be useful for you and as part of your development career. Try to answer a few questions in the communities and the Stack Overflow. To example, suppose you're learning some concept today, definitely there would be a question somewhere somebody has posed on that. In that, try to go over there, try to technically answer that question. It will enhance you, it will brush your technical skills. Try to follow the technical magazines, newsletters on one magazine, one technical magazine. It's open source magazines, especially on the Linux operating systems. There are n number of magazines, very good magazines available, especially from the network standpoint, cyber security, etc. Follow those magazines. How many videos you learn, how many teachers you explain, how many courses you attend. Let me start the last slide. We'll finish off in 5 minutes. So these are the need of ours which we were discussing. So I'll start with where I stopped, the GitHub repository. So the GitHub repository, prepare your own GitHub repository. So I specifically mentioned the GitHub here, but it doesn't mean that you have to go and use GitHub. Typically, maintain your repository of your all development activities. One or other day, definitely they'll be useful. It's not like you develop something and you throw in the trash. That should not be your case. Very, very careful and preserve what you develop. One or other day, they'll be helpful for you. Okay, to revisit or to modify whatever you have developed. Try to answer questions in Stack Overflow or any community. Every let us say Oracle will have its own Oracle community. Java will have its own community. All community finally corresponds to Stack Overflow. Would be the generic community for each and every problem. Whatever you have learned today, it could be a small concept in any chapter. There would be someone that will be posing some question over there. Go over there, write the question, answer the question. Even the question is already answered by someone. Try to answer in your own layman terms such that it will be easily understandable. This helps your technical knowledge a lot exponentially. Find technical magazines. As I said, that there are n number of open source technical magazines. Either you can download virtually or read virtually, or you can physically, you can get a copy monthly basis. You can subscribe to them. They'll be available in your email box. Read them, spend some time. If you do not have time to read entire article, for every magazine comes its own summary of it. Try to at least read the summary. It would be very, very helpful for you. Now, no matter whatever be the programming language you learn, what are the technical stack you're learning, ultimately, there are few important books which you need to read or which are must to read as part of your development career. So, name a few. Design patterns. I think you already have a subject called design patterns, which is very, very, very important. The algorithms, the design analysis of algorithms or algorithm subject which you have, all the algorithms plays a very, very vital role in your development standpoint. There's a book called Clean Code, how to write a clean code instead of a smelly code where everything is properly opened and it is not understandable, is not readable, is not scalable. So those are the factors you'll be learning from a clean code. These all the books are generic books which are available in any library, any online, freely ebooks are available. These are few important books. I just named a few. There are hardly 10 books. You can Google it. You can find it. Most of them would be common. Do not forget to read these books. No matter how many technologies you learn, no matter how many programming language you have, no matter how much percentages you have, without doing these books, it is not at all. There is no sense of doing development actually. Something like a software engineering, which the Venkatesh was asking. So these are few standard books. You have to read them, typically understand them, the concepts. These cannot be automated by their own. So these are dry subjects, but these dry subjects plays a crucial role in your development career. I just named a few publications, Dummies, Manning, etc., which are available. You can go through them. They're easily, you can find some important books. And apart from that, how you can find a new ideas, how you can spark your innovations. Okay, as I said that every Twitter handle, that the programming language, accordingly, they will be conducting few sessions every year basis. Now, let us say that if Apple releases its own product, there will be a big seminar, a big conference which will be happening where they'll be demonstrating all its features. Like the same applicable for small languages as well. So they'll be conducting few seminars, they'll be conducting few sangam meets. Okay, there would be 99%, there would be they will be free. And even also if they charge very nominally, and especially for the students from the university, it would be very less. It's hardly compared to what you are spending on your OTT. Okay, so try to attend these seminars, try to attend how the world is going, where are we on it, are we with the flow or are we the game changers? It will help you to spark your innovation. Do not miss these things. Now, due to the pandemic, most of them are going virtual. It's a very nice opportunity where you can attend from your, instead of like going to large distances, attending seminars, everything is going a virtual fashion. Now it's just go subscribe, and there'll be a day, there'll be hours, certain hours to attend from your home anywhere. Since you have a digital gadget in your hand, you can attend to it, to attend these summits. And innovation incubators, every university, every college, there'll be, every IT sector would be having an innovation incubator. So, for example, the government of Telangana has a T hub where it would be organizing few student meets. Okay, again, they're also very free. There are no any restrictions. You just go there, sit for some time and come. That's it. Do not do anything for few days. You'll understand the market, how the market is, what market is expecting, what you want to, how you want to evolve. Okay, you'd be changing, it will change definitely your mindset, what market is expecting. That problem, that's it. Typically a programmer does now participate in hackathons, different kind of coding hackathons, a number of things available in the market. Hacker Rank, Hacker at Google itself bought a Google innovative project, I forgot the name, where you can go and participate, enhance your programming skills there itself. Okay, every company has its own programming handle where give your problems, it will ask you to solve. The point, one of the important point is the first problem you solve, you'll not achieve anything, it will be a trash. But the only important point you have to remind over is you are trying, you are attempting the first problem, which will lay a step for the second. So try to participate in complex problems. You can start with the simple primary number logic problems, and you can build complex algorithms, comparison algorithms, everything. All the 8 to different kinds of algorithm programming paradigms you'd be understanding in depth. So this is how you innovate yourself, and this is how a market finds in you. See, learning a programming language in a typical institution or in a typical area or a specific Amirpet, and you can get a job with a salary, but that will not be sustainable. Hardly you'll be there 1 year, 2 years, and you'll get yourself in a situation why you're doing this work. You should not be in the situation. If you follow these things, you would be attaining a good IT career, and you'll be enjoying your job without much stress. So yeah, so this is what here I have. I'll stop sharing at this moment, and I'm open for any kind of questions. Do not hesitate to ask, even if you think that it is a small question, do not hesitate to ask. So 3 programming languages. I am not pointing to there's a question, 3 programming. I'm not pointing to any programming languages. I am pointing to the areas actually. One would be the front end area, the other would be the business logic area, the third would be the database area. Typically, any development application will correspond to any of these areas. Okay, it could be front end, it could be a business logic, it could be a backend. Backend is a database. Without these 3, sometimes application would be combination of only 2 or only 1 as well, static web pages, more or less. But these 3 are the areas. In this area, you choose any weapon you want. And I believe your question was more of the 3 programming languages from the front-end technologies. If that is the question, yes, these 3 are the fundamentals where every other things got evolved. These are the basics through which everything got evolved. The core primal forces, which I said from the front-end technology standpoint, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. From the front-end standpoint, They're the core primal skeleton, I would say. From there, everything got developed. Whatever maybe the front-end technology, it could be using PHP, you could be using Java server faces or Java server pages or servlets or React.js, AngularJS, Vue.js, Next.js, everything will be finally coming to these three. Once you open your web application in the browser, you don't see JSP code, you don't see React.js code, you don't see AngularJS code. If you go and inspect your page, you'll be seeing typically HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's it. Yeah, Kaushik, what is your question? You raised your hand. See, incubator is something like again, a good question by Venkatesh. So incubator is something like you have to go there with your idea. It's not like that. It's a myth. Incubator is something like an area, something like, let us say, if you want to start you want to create a startup, or you have to run a startup basically. Now you do not have much resources. You need an office, you need a work environment, you need all the technological aspects. It would be costly, little costly. It's not that incentive friendly, right? Now, incubator is an area where it will provide you all the tools necessary for your idea or your product to run. Or it would be providing you incentives on that, a collaboration. It may be something like, let us say you have an idea, you go there, there'll be another person who's a developer who can come to there to see what are the ideas in the market. Now, an idea would be, there's a collaboration which would be happening over there. Now, suppose if you are, let us say you are very good with Java programming language. Now go to the incubator. There will be some other person who has an idea, but you don't have a programmer. He may touch base with you. He may connect with you for his idea to become into the practical implementation. Incubator is something like an area which will provide a assistance for the startup such that they get onto their ground for the certain stages. Very starting phase, no one will have anything. No, but there are some primal important things which are need, something like a technology, something like a proper internet connection, something like a roof under which they can develop for their team. So this is what an incubator provides: an idea to encourage, a funding, a salary. Suppose if you have 2 to 3 people and you need some basic amount to start with, some licenses you need to buy for some products, or some basic funding, everything happens. This is an area where you get that. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can call it a day.
Students, anybody can respond? Madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Prasanna Kumar, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
A very hearty vote of thanks to Prasanna Kumar, sir, for gracing your knowledge and sharing your opinions today, sir. Thank you so much once again, sir. And also, I thank my college management for making this seminar happen today. Thank you, one and all. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Shishant, sir. Thank you, Gopinath, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.